Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that page and click on the Start Here link in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. It's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 17 years to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships. And it's a tool that I can use effectively to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each one of us has been given. The tool itself is available absolutely free. You can click on a link on that page, download the tool. It's a simple PDF file. Download it, print it off, and copy it and use it as often as you'd like. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows like this one where people have been stepped through the use of that tool, or they've been giving powerful testimonials about how the active application of that tool in their lives has benefited them greatly. We hope you do that soon and often. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness and get access to a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. If you have comments or questions or testimonials, give us a call at 563-999-3581 and press 1. You'll put a question mark by your phone number, and I'll announce you by your area code. We're doing the Course in Miracles workbook lessons this year and the Pam Grout Course in Miracles experiment commentary to go with it. And this workbook lesson for today reads, I need but call on you and you will answer me. The commentary reads, I am not asked to take salvation on the basis of unsupported faith, for creation has promised it will hear my call and answer me itself. Let me but learn from my experience that this is true, and faith in creation must surely come to me. This is the faith that will endure and take me farther and still farther on the road that leads to connection with creation, for thus I will be sure that it has not abandoned me, and it extends its love to me still, awaiting but my call to give me all the help I need to come back in touch with creation. Creator, I thank you that your promises will never fail in my experience if I but test them out. Let me attempt, therefore, to try them and judge them not. Your word is one with you. You give the means whereby conviction comes, and surety of your abiding love is gained at last. Pam Grout's Course in Miracles experiment book, Lesson 327, is titled, Stop the Should Storm. She quotes Adyashanti as saying, as long as your experience of self and life is defined by the mechanical, conditioned, and compulsive movement of thought, you are bound to be a very, very limited in your perception of what is real. Pam writes, it starts the moment we're born. We are measured and weighed, compared to other babies in this nursery. We got to make sure that we're the proper height, the proper weight, And then we're taught language and given rules and told to forsake our imaginary friends. It's not that the dude deserted us. It's just hard to make contact through all the words, through the ongoing should storm of guilt and shame. Even the self-help literature, and yes, I'm one of the dispensers of self-help books, even the self-help literature makes us feel guilty. Oh no, I'm having a negative thought. I'm not vibrating enough joy. You know what? It doesn't matter. If you simply let go of all the shoulds, you will be guided, blessed, constantly taken care of. As Lesson 327 promises, I need but call. I will be answered. So that's our Course in Miracles workbook lesson for today and the Course in Miracles experiment commentary from Pam Grout. And as usual, we've got about 50 minutes of time to take your comments and questions. 563-999-3581. If you call that number and press 1, we can have a conversation. What's on your mind today? How can we support you? What would be of value for us to discuss? That is, after all, our intention for being here. Our intention for being here is to be of value, to be of service. How can we be of service today? What's on your mind? I was in a session recently with someone who was talking about the difficulty in his circles, his spheres of influence, when he tries to introduce people to the concept, some of these spiritual concepts, including the concept that all events are neutral. Think about it. How many people in your life who are not immersed in the spiritual circles would, let's say, freely, wholeheartedly agree that all events are neutral? The fact of the matter is, for most of us, that's not the case. We aren't surrounded by people who would look at life events and say all events are neutral. And of course, I don't know if you're tapped into the news, but we're here very close to an event that happened in Wisconsin over the weekend. People were gathered for a Christmas parade, and somebody drove an SUV through the Christmas parade, and the end result was that 5 people were dead and over 40 people were injured, and what was supposed to be a joyful holiday family time turned into chaos and injuries and death. And so, this person in my session today was saying, so how am I going to go to these people and say all events are neutral? And they're going to just, spit at me and say, this isn't neutral. And the fact of the matter is, I told them, if I were in that situation, I wouldn't argue with them if they wanted to say that's not a neutral event. But if you're engaging in the use of these tools and you understand, not because somebody has told you you should believe this or that, not because of any shoulds, but from direct observation, when you change your interpretation, when you change your focus, and you pour your mind energy into a focus that is more positive or at least neutral, then you create a different experience of your life in that moment. Yes, even when an event this intense happens. Someone was quoted giving a talk at one of the gatherings of people trying to comfort each other in the wake of this experience. And she said, one of the best pieces of advice I'd ever heard from this over the years, these kinds of things. She said, I choose to focus on the helpers. Look at how many people are here to comfort each other, bringing help and support, offering counseling, etc. This is, to me, a better use of my mind energy than fighting against what happened. This isn't about being in denial and saying nothing bad happened, nothing good happened. It's just saying, and this was the advice I gave the patient in my office, what I say to people is, I don't know if all events are neutral. I really don't have any way of knowing the absolute truth of that observation that all events are neutral. What I can tell you without any hesitation is, the more I pretend it's true and choose a more positive interpretation, or at least a neutral interpretation of life events, the better my life gets. The better is my experience of life. The more I pretend that this ancient spiritual teaching that all events are neutral is actually true. And then, we talked about a variety of things, including, so what do you do? How do you start getting back to a neutral or positive interpretation of things if something this intense happens? I said, well, the good place for me to start is I take a breath, I get centered, I notice that my energy has gone into a negative spin, and I take a breath and I get centered and I start asking myself, gently asking questions like, I wonder how this is going to turn out for the better. I wonder how this contains a lesson I need to learn to move to the next level. I wonder how this situation is going to turn into a blessing or multiple blessings I couldn't have imagined. I wonder how this situation is going to lead me to meet people that I never would have met any other way, where either I'm going to be a blessing in their life, or they're going to be a blessing in my life, or both are going to be true. And if I just relax back into observing with that open questioning, my life gets better and better and better. And I don't know the absolute truth of it. I don't know if all events are neutral. I don't know if, as some people are very, very anxious to talk about these days, there's a war going on the planet between good and evil, etc. I don't know if any of that's true. I do know that my life gets better and better, often by leaps and bounds, the more I pretend that all events are neutral and that whatever interpretation I choose to place upon these life events is what drives my experience of life. And so if I actively choose a more positive life interpretation, and then I generate from that interpretation a more positive response, my life gets better. And I know it to be true because I've observed it directly in my life. And like today's Course in Miracles lesson says, it's not something that I need to take on some kind of untested faith. It's direct observation. My life gets better the more I choose positive interpretations of that life, and then constructive responses from that clearer view, from that what Michael Rice would call something closer to true perception, that spiritual faculty of seeing the absolute truth of things. And when I'm looking at life through a clean lens, no filter, just the lens, it's far easier for me to choose words and behaviors that are either in themselves a blessing to myself and others or lead to a blessing for myself and others. And that's the core of this work. The more time we can spend looking through the clear lens with no filter, the more we see the truth. What's the truth? The truth is every one of us is the extension of the creative energy and form. Every one of us is a being of brilliance and light. Even when we aren't aware of that and or acting from that awareness. So, can you find a practice, find a set of tools, find a perspective that allows you to step into the direct observation that your existence, your very ability to be awake and aware and perceive is a miracle, is the extension of the creative energy and form, is evidence of you being a brilliance and light, and that in every moment when you're in direct conscious awareness of that, you extend that energy, you become part of the blessing for yourself and others. And in every moment where you're not aware of it, it's just a time where you've either temporarily forgotten or you've yet to discover the truth that you are a miracle of life expressing in form. You have forgotten or have temporarily forgotten or have yet to discover your brilliance as part of the spark of the one mind, as part of the creative energy expressing in form. And when that happens, when some kind of a fog of negativity arises and obstructs your vision, that's where it's so useful to have tools like the ones Michael and Jeannie Rice make available absolutely free at whyagain.org, because you can then actively step into the application of those tools and transform your life for the better. And that's what we're here to support people in doing, soon and often. And we're here to entertain your questions and comments about how to make that happen. Our call-in number is 563-999-3581. Call that number and press 1 and help us be of service to you. Let us know what would be useful, a useful way for you specifically to spend the next 40 minutes or whatever it is. There was another powerful question in the last session, and it had to do with what is the actual mechanism within me that generates the upset that I experience. And this person's been coming to see me for a while, and he said, I really need you to say this again differently, because he said something about, this person triggered me. And I corrected him and said, let's just slow this down and let's integrate some learnings here. If it's true, as in so many of these deep spiritual traditions, if it's true that all events are neutral, then isn't it possible that no one's ever triggered you, that what's happening is when a neutral event unfolds, and that could be even somebody who's actively trying to get you upset. They're trying to insult you or hurt you or get you to feel hurt or pain because they're in pain. Even when that happens, it's a neutral event. And the thing that changes it from your experience of neutrality to your experience of upset is the interpretation that you choose and then place on that event. So each of us is walking around with the accumulation of, negative beliefs and upsets and traumas of the past and negative self-judgments, and each of us is walking around with that in our energy system. We aren't consciously aware of it because we wouldn't be able to function very well in the world if that was in the forefront of our mind. But we carry it around with us. And when we choose an interpretation that has the same resonant frequency as that negative judgment or traumatic energy or pained experience from the past, that's what adds the energy to that emotion, that trauma energy, etc., that brings it from our unconscious awareness into our conscious awareness. The outside event didn't do that because the outside event is neutral. And I could have chosen a neutral or a positive interpretation of that outside event, and that energy of trauma and that negative memory would have stayed hidden from my conscious awareness. It's a powerful dynamic. It helps us get very clear in our thoughts and our wording about this if we use the regulatory speech at another level of specificity and accuracy. And I don't let myself say false statements such as, this person triggered my upset, or this event triggered me to anger, or this event triggered my sadness, because the event is neutral. The thing that is in resonance, my upset, that I carry with me into this moment, is the interpretation I choose and place on that event. I've had several situations in the past couple of weeks where people came in and said they were in situations which in past years would have resulted in them getting all kinds of angry and upset and maybe even, fist fights with people. And they've watched themselves shut down the rage, shut down the angry response, shut down the attack back, the verbal attack back, and they've been amazed at their ability to do that. So it can happen. And with practice, people recognize that it happens more and more frequently. One of the benefits of breaking the habit or the cycle of relying on rage as our drug of choice or our defense mechanism is that when we're in a situation to which we would have responded with rage in the past, and we refuse to step into the rage, we will be introduced to a level of strength that we had never known was possible. The reason being multi-level. One of them is that rage creates a false sense of strength, of permanence, of solidity. And so many people use the rage to numb out from the pain, the fear, the sadness, the more vulnerable emotions. And because they're continually tapped into that drug of choice, they don't have the experience of tapping into the strength that comes from refusing to rage and being in what some would call the more sensitive, the more vulnerable, the less controlled emotions. Those emotional states which don't leave us feeling in control. Rage helps us have this false sense of control. Refusing to rage leaves us in the experience of what some would call the more tender emotions, the more fluid emotions. Sadness, pain, fear, confusion. And from that space, many people I've worked with over the years have gained the experience that when they refuse to rage, they tap into a level of strength they had never known was possible. And that's our invitation. Choose to understand, choose to observe for yourself. It's recommended that you avoid arguments with people about whether or not all events are neutral. That's not a fruitful discussion topic. However, while it's not really open for discussion, it's always open for observation. How does your life change, for the better, neutral, or worse, when you pretend that all events are neutral, and when you step into a level of observation that has you questioning everything and watching, all right, what is the interpretation that I've chosen and placed on this life event that's unfolding in front of me? Oh, I've chosen an interpretation that says this is bad, this is wrong, that person has no right to talk to me that way. This is tragic that these people died, and this is tragic that those people got off and didn't have to be punished for what they did. And I've chosen that interpretation, and now I can observe it with direct observation. What's the impact of me pouring my mind energy into that interpretation? And the more I'm willing to sit with that level of observation, the more I get to see the consequences that follow. I get to see whether or not I prefer those consequences or something else. And then, as the Course in Miracles asks us so often, and as the Diedrich Wolzak work has in its title, I have the option to choose again. There's an invitation in much of this work to choose again. And so, how can we support you in stepping into this new level of observation, questioning, setting up the observation in your mind for any thoughts, and especially any words where you say, this person triggered me, or that person triggered me, or that situation triggered me, and just step into the questioning. I wonder, what if nothing outside of me has ever triggered me? What if the triggering is actually the resonance that happens between the interpretation I choose and the traumatic energy I've brought with me into this situation? Michael Rice likes to talk about scriptural quotes where the disciples asked Jesus or Yeshua to, punish these people and, get angry and storm through the place or take a sword and do damage to these people. And Michael's response is that, or Yeshua's response was, I have none of that in my store. And Michael Rice clarifies, it means he's done enough of his work that he has done the dismantling process that in the ancient Aramaic was known as forgiveness or shabagging. He has dismantled the pain, fear, sadness, and hurt in his system that would lead him to use rage as a drug to cover it up. And so got none of that in his store means he's cleared out enough of the energy so that there's no negative interpretation within him that would resonate the upset, because the upset's been removed from his energetic system. So this is what we're hoping to help people observe and wake up to in their own lives, and we have specific tools to help make that happen. Our call-in number is 563-999-3581. Call that number, press 1. Let us know how we can be supportive to you today. How can we be of service? We've got about 26, 27 minutes left. Plenty of time for a call. What's on your mind, or what is it that we've spoken of so far that's resonated something of interest? If you have a question, it's a valid question. There's no such thing as a silly question. There are questions that need to be asked again and again. There are answers that need to be repeated many multiples of times in order for us to get deeper and deeper levels of understanding. And the other day I was looking up the Rilke quote. I talk quite often about Rainier Maria Rilke, and he has a specific quote about living the question. And I like to read it from time to time. And he says, I just went to the wrong page on my... The quote says, I beg you to have patience with everything that's unresolved in your life and in your heart, and to try to love the questions themselves. Right? It's not just the idea of having a question and then searching for an answer passionately. It's about having a love for, having an honoring for the questions themselves. Rilke goes on to say, do not search for the answers which could not be given to you now because you would not be able to live them. Literally, I'm breaking off from Rilke and say, listen, the answers would be like murmurings from another language that you don't speak, or echoes from energies from a dimension, a parallel dimension that you don't have access to. You would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now, and perhaps then, someday, far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, you will live your way into the answer. So we have a hand up. It's area code 310. Give us a name and where you're calling from.
Yeah, hi. Hi, is this Tim?
Yes.
Hi, this is Dahlia. I joined quite late, so that's why I wasn't sure what I figured it was you. I listened to your radio a while back, and kind of like been struggling a little bit lately, and I felt like I needed support, and yeah, so here I am. Thank you for answering my call. Yeah, so where I am based in Evanston, Illinois, and I am struggling right now quite a lot. It's related to my family. It's kind of I've been noticing that I'm trying to search for who my father is. I haven't ever known, and my mom refuses to tell me. And then my friends question, well, how come your mom doesn't tell you? And so then I opened the old wound from years ago, and I asked my mom again 2 weeks ago, to which she basically insulted me in many different ways. And then after that, made a lot of insulting comments. And after that, she said I'm no longer her daughter, and she doesn't want to see me ever again. And she, even if she dies, like, I'm not even allowed to come to her funeral. And that was our last conversation. So, so I feel very hurt. And
so breathe. Feel the hurt and breathe. So,
yeah.
Dahlia, how much do you know about this work?
The work that you do?
The Mind Shifter tool, the targeted journaling that Michael calls a Mind Shifter, the reality management worksheet. How much do you know about any of that?
I know. I did a little bit. I did for maybe 6 months or so a while back. Urita was the one who introduced me to the work and the tools, about the mind shifting and all that. I think.
Okay, so is this Dahlia who attended a support group?
Yeah.
A video call? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So did you ever do any of the worksheets?
I did back then, and then I stopped. I went through a lot of different life events. Like I had a very severe case of COVID, that I was sick for a month, but really bad case. And then I had aftermath, like really bad, for 4 or 5 months. And then I developed autoimmune disease during that time. So it's a lot of stuff happened, the bad stuff, but also good stuff. I started my own company. So a lot of good and bad stuff, but I truly put my self-care aside, and that's the saddest part. I feel when hard things come my way, the first that goes out of the window is the self-care. So yes, I stopped all the work.
Okay, so the bottom line of all of this work is I am the author of my emotions. And so in this case, I would invite you to begin to observe how you are the author of any negative emotions that you experience when your mother says, "You're no longer my daughter, I never want any contact with you, even when I'm dead, don't come to the funeral." Now those, seem like very intense words, and most people would assume, in our Western culture at least, that those words are causing your upset, that your mother's words and actions are going to cause your sadness, your fear, your hurt, your anger. But we invite people to step into the observation that not only is that not true, that was never true. And that's the good news, because then you can actually access the mechanism within you that's causing your emotions and make a change. If you don't like the emotions you're experiencing and you understand how you're creating them, you can change. Now, I don't know if you've heard us talk about this before, but one of the best tools in a situation like this, where you're interacting with your mother and your mother has gotten so upset and she wants to blame you for her upset, and she's saying something that you interpret as very hurtful and distancing, etc. One of the best things to do is engage in the tool that Pierre Pradervand writes about in his book, The Gentle Art of Blessing. Have you heard us talk about that?
No.
No? All right. So
No.
the best, quickest way for you to get introduced to that is to listen to the interview I did with him for this podcast, this Mind Shifters radio show.
Okay.
And it's available if you go to the mindshiftersacademy.org website
Mhm.
and click on the link for Best of Audio Files. There's only 6 audio files on that page, and the last one on that page is the interview I did with Pierre Pratervand.
Okay.
And so the mechanism that he outlines, when actively practiced, is one of the best, most powerful tools I've encountered to improve the quality of my life and relationships, regardless of what the other person is doing. So I would encourage you to review that. You can, whet your appetite with listening to that hour-long interview, and then if you're so inclined, you can get the book and read more. He's got 2 different books on the blessings. One of them is The Gentle Art of Blessing, and then a couple of years ago he came out with a new one that's 365 Blessings to Heal Myself and the World.
Mm-hmm.
And then specifically in relation to you, you said you experienced hurt when your mother said, "You're no longer my daughter and I never want to see you again." Correct?
Yeah, she made lots of horrible remarks during that time. I'm just like making it short and sweet, but there were lots of insults that she made that were not even true, and like pretty harsh ones.
Well, they're harsh, right? And they're negative, and you experienced hurt when you heard those, right? And you put an interpretation on those words that resonated a lot of hurt inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where using a tool like the Reality Management Worksheet can be so beneficial. Because the Reality Management Worksheet in the first 3 steps has you get very specific about what you're doing with your thoughts to create the emotion you're experiencing. And it has you get very specific about what you think has to happen for you to be happy again or feel peace again. And that's when you create the goal for that worksheet. And then when you cancel that goal and ask to be shown something from the hidden part of your mind, something you and I could not even begin to imagine right now as we think about how hurtful it was that your mother would say this stuff. And you ask to be shown something you cannot imagine with your conscious logical mind, that's where the power of that process really shines through. There's no amount of me talking to you on the radio that's going to make you feel better. Your mother just told you she never wants to see you again. She said all these angry, hurtful things. I don't have any magic words to make you feel better. And yet you can feel better unbelievably quickly if you are willing to apply that tool.
Well, you see, I've done that tool, and I understand what you're saying, but it hasn't worked the way you're saying that it works for me. It hasn't. Maybe I'm resisting, but like when there is severe trauma that I have experienced throughout my life, that was a real trauma, not just like imaginative trauma, emotional and physical abuse, for since childhood and whatnot, and now it's emotional abuse that's continuing. It's easier said than done just to to do the tool, the sheet, cancel the thoughts out, or I don't know how you call it, but and just and say, oh, everything is okay. Well, it's not that easy. I mean, I've done a lot of that work. I've done other work, and it's like the only way I see, like, not to feel emotions. You know, I heard you say before that, well, you could hold the thought as neutral, right? Not to put that into any interpretation, and I hear you. However, you know, like, if I want to have like a no, like, not to kind of wave the waves or how to move the waves, then I have to be completely quiet, calm, quiet in this family. But if I ever voice or ask something, nothing good will come out of that. However, you know, so does that mean I can't know the truth, or I have to cancel out the thought of wanting to know that? I don't know. I don't know. And
are you
therefore,
talking about knowing? Are you talking about knowing the truth of who your father is?
Yeah, or being shut down and never being able to ask. And if I asked when I was 27 and we had a fight, and now I'm 47 and I asked the same, and she said, well, I thought you forgot about this. I thought you became smarter. Yeah, great. Yeah, so.
Well, so Dahlia, let me help you. Let me help you try to understand something here. You're asking for help with a very intense, many-layered problem in your life. You're talking about physical and emotional abuse through your life. You're talking about dealing with a mother who is so traumatized that she's, rather than face her own internal pain, she's talking about disowning her daughter, meaning you. So this is a very intense, many-layered problem. And what you're saying to me is that your experience of the tool and your, however much experience you have with the reality management worksheet is that it is not powerful enough to help you with the kind of problem you've got. And
That's right.
I would say, with the level of experience you have with this tool, it is not powerful enough to fix your problem. However, imagine that we had just a plain old hammer and a chisel and one of those sandstone blocks, about 4 foot by 4 foot. Have you ever done any sculpting?
Well, my first major was in furniture with technology and engineering, so I did a little bit of tool work.
But with your hands, a hammer and a chisel, have you sculpted something out of a block of sandstone?
No.
All right. So we give you the hammer and the chisel, and then we get foremost sculptor on the planet alive today who has spent decades working with the hammer and the chisel, and we give you each identical 4 by 4 blocks of sandstone. What do you think the results are going to be? Same tools.
Well, of course, the experience.
The person with the experience
they will
is
get
going to get far more powerful results.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's not that this tool is not powerful enough to help you. It's that you don't have the experience with it yet so that you can do with it what it's capable of helping you do. So I just have to offer that reality management worksheet is one tool. 3 early memories of conflict is another tool. The codependence to interdependence worksheet is another tool. The Mind Shifter targeted journaling is another tool. The Pierre Prater-Van Gentle Art of Blessing is another tool. And there are others that are available free, and yet each of them will take some time for you to learn how to use the individual tool and how to use them in conjunction with other tools to produce powerful results in your life. And we've got this internet show that happens 5 days a week, 2 hours a day that you could tap into. We have the support group that happens twice a week from 6:30 to 9 p.m., and that's available free, where we can help you step through a worksheet process. Now, we don't have time to step you through a worksheet process today. We could help you frame out a worksheet process if you were convinced that it might be of value. But with what you just stated, you're sitting there with a conclusion that this tool is too simple and too powerless to help you with the big trauma you're going through. And so it wouldn't even be beneficial for me to step you through a worksheet, because the conclusion you're holding. Have you been on,
as if I already
on
know
this
the
show
outcome.
at all? Pardon me?
As if I
Say
already
again?
know the outcome.
Exactly.
What you said about the conclusion. Right.
Have you been on this show at the beginning at all this year? We've been starting. Listen a minute, so we don't run out of time. We've been starting the show every day this year by reading a Course in Miracles workbook lesson and the commentary from the book, The Course in Miracles Experiment, by Pam Grout. A couple days ago on this show, we said, so here's the Course in Miracles lesson. And, it was just yesterday. And it says, when you believe something, you have made it true for you. As long as you believe this tool can't help me, that will be true.
Right.
As soon as you feel like the old Henry Ford thing, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right either way. Because what you believe is what you make your reality. And I'm not trying to convince you one way or another, but I will tell you this. The reason I still dedicate 5 hours a day or 5 hours a week and 2 nights a week these support groups and donate my time to this for the past 11 years is because of the benefit these tools have had in my life. For some of the worst, some of the most intense, some of the most unwanted events in my life, and how these tools and their application have allowed me to have a more loving, a more peaceful, a more productive, a more connected emotionally to other people experience in my life. And that's all I can tell you, is that I keep using these tools and I keep sharing them because they have a power that goes far beyond anything I imagined when I first got introduced to them.
Thank you. Thank you. I hear you and understand what you're saying. It's the mindset and its resistance to something that I already made up my mind that might not have help, when in fact it might help. Right. Thank you. So what
and I offer the ongoing support.
What days do you offer? Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Tuesday night and Thursday night from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time.
Okay.
Those groups are still running. Still.
And I can find it on the Heart Radio website?
No, you can find it on mindshiftersacademy.org.
Mindshiftersacademy.org. Okay. I'll sign up. Okay.
The same one I sent you to for the Pierre Pratervand interview.
Do you, Tim, also take private clients?
Yes, when I have the time, I do. Yes.
I hear you.
That has been a real stretch these past almost 2 years now with the coronavirus restrictions, trying to find enough time to see all the people that want to be seen. But yes, I do have a private practice.
Yes. Well, actually, I'm a psychotherapist myself, so which, I understand because I'm busy myself. But yeah, I'm definitely looking for someone for stronger support. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Tim. I will look on the Academy website, and then I will sign up for that support group, and then I'll keep coming few weeks, and hopefully I can also find a therapist.
All right, and you can email me through that website if you want to, make direct contact.
Okay, wonderful.
All right.
Truly, I really appreciate it. Thank you. God bless you.
All right, you're welcome and deserving.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we have just a couple of minutes left until hopefully Michael and or Jeannie will be here for the second hour today, and we have the rest of the week. I don't know if there will be some best of shows going on later in the week. This is a holiday week. Traditionally, we have just done the internet shows right through the holidays, and that's all I know of. I know that yesterday we did a best of show for Michael and Jeannie, and we only have about a minute or so left, but here's area code 760. You're in the air. Who do we have?
Hey, this is Ann, normally in Florida, but visiting in South Carolina. But I just wanted to thank you, as always. When someone else calls in and you're working with them, it benefits all of us, but I can only speak for me today. I'm up here with different personalities, the other mother-in-law, or the other mother, which would be a sister-in-law, I guess. I don't know. In a new house of my daughter and son-in-law, and just it's beautiful out here. It's freezing at night, but sun's shining, and I'm raking leaves and made my own exercise program. But there's those differences in personalities, and I just thank you for how you worked with. Can't remember her name right now, but the gal that you were working with, and Dahlia, and it just is all those reminders of things I needed to hear again while I'm up here, because I'm up here with no worksheets. But I need to get the new, or the, what is it, Heartland Aramaic on my new phone, because I don't have that. But I have the other mother is been working with mental health for 30 plus years and getting ready to retire. And yet she admitted in our conversations over the last couple of days that she is a controller. It's like, but then we're also talking about scriptures and, and the Bible and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, I am not the judge. I am still to work on my own self. So thank you so much.
All right,
it's been a blessing to listen.
Entirely welcome and deserving blessings. I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of this stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Welcome, Jeannie Rice.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. I noticed that Blog Talk has made a change in the hand up. That's cool.
It actually looks like a hand right now.
Yeah, it does. Awesome. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you for playing that yesterday.
You're very welcome and deserving. Have a great show.
Thank you.